Alright, Bubby. Alright, Bubba. Alright, Bubby. Hey, Bubby boy. Come here. Come on. Little boy. Oh. Come here. Whoa. Silly. Jesus fucking hell. Aye, fucking aye. Hey. What's up? Oh, Jesus Christ. This sounds great. Caught your stepdad flirting with another woman, so I met my stepsis waiting on them to stop arguing. Oh my god, well, that's great. Ay. Oh, those good old traditional family values, am I right? All those are nice and moral, but uh-oh. A gay person, that's unacceptable. But hey, being an adulterer, that's totally fine. Spent the other half of the day before the argument with parent offense. Well, that's something. Got a little work done today. A little productivity and all that, and Jesus Christ, that was the first, weed I smoked all day. Holy shit. Oh, what's this? Pro tip, don't grab barbed wire fence by the barbed wire. No shit. Yeah, don't grab it by its barbed wire, bro. Yeah, with it's kind of tricky to work with barbed wire, but it's basically just being extra careful with it. Got a nice cut on my hand doing that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like that just kind of is par for the course a little bit. I mean, it's fucking barbed wire, you're probably gonna poke yourself a little bit. My mom actually fucked herself on barbed wire once, actually. And her grandma, too, once. Not, any time recently, by the way. This just, back in a long time ago when they were, my age. But it's actually both basically from similar stories. Apparently, from the story of my grandma, she basically got in a pen with a bowl and didn't realize that the bowl was in there, and basically started running like fucking hell and trying to get the fuck out, get the hell out of there. And the only real way she could is hop the fence, which was all fucking barbed wire. So she ripped herself to shreds pretty good on that one. And it was a similar story of my mom too, where she was actually taking pictures for this guy, and she was in the pen a little bit, and luckily at least that bowl was a little bit more dormant, but it charged at her a little bit, and she kind of freaked out and tried to get over the fence a little bit and cut her leg during that one. So yeah, barbed wire is just not something to kind of fuck with. You'll hurt yourself. Between dodging horse turds and barbed wire and beat. Well, at least horse turds are the least of your concerns about that, because they eat mostly grass, so it's, at least that isn't that terrible. It just smells bad. It smells horrible, so obviously don't want to have that smell on you. But yeah, barbed wire is not exactly great. But anyway, let's pull some tunes up here and all that shit. Cool. How's Deli today? I don't know. I wasn't working today. I was actually called in, well, not called in, but I was, like, texted to see if I wanted to come in, but honestly, I was just kind of like, you know, I just wasn't really in the mood for it. I'll go in tomorrow. Primarily just because, like, just tired for today. Rather just kind of rest and chill. And also probably gonna go to the pub a little bit later. Some of my buddies are thinking about hitting the, you know, watering hole and shit. That's down the street, so I might go down there later. Nom nom. Man, what the hell? I am getting recommended, like, it's like firearms training shit. Pros and cons of carbine to handgun transition. Shred the red roll, the parts. The Red World Hearts of Fire 4 mod. It's a timeline where Bernie Sanders loses his goddamn mind and takes over the U.S. What the fuck? Even does 9/11, he is so radical in this timeline. What the fuck? It's Bernie Sanders does 9/11. Dude, what the fuck? Oh my god, dude. Yo. What the fuck? I'm assuming you need, like, Really, dog? Really, bro? Oi. Oi. The hell's that about, huh? Huh? But yeah, like, what the fuck? Bernie doing it's like fucking a 9/11 and just like having a radical ass. Like, I mean, in a way, I guess that could be like questionably based. Not the this is Bernie doing, not that part, but at least like him being like going bonkers that he gets so radical. I mean, that's at least based. I can get with that. When a core after US breaks up into a bunch of rump nations and Bernie turns radical after his family was killed by right wingers. Damn. I have a very strong feeling that mod sounds like a very strong fan fiction by a Bernie bro that just seriously wishes that Bernie was fucking president or something. Which definitely makes sense. There we go. Of course, it's going to be real loud. There we go. Actually, the mod author died years ago. Fans have been updating since. Hey! Hey, chill, bro. Hey! Sukov! Hey, dude! Bro, come on. Like, why are you like this? When you hear neighbors outside. Yeah. Silly dog. Yeah. And one of my friends in the fucking Telegram chat is literally having a little pity party. Basically just being like, oh, I'll never get my health back, my life sucks, and this and that. And it's just like, dude, holy fucking shit, bro. It's like, goddamn. It's like, honestly, with that, like, type of mentality, it's like, fuck, we literally all feel like that at that rate. It's like, Jesus. Can I help you, goober? You silly boy. Shit. My family getting ready to break apart. I mean, yeah, at least yours is kind of understandable. I mean, my friend's, like, family is kind of shitty, too. His mom and his brother are, like, not exactly great. His brother is just, like, a fucking total social leech and totally, you know, it, like, fundamentally brings everybody down with him, essentially, because of, like, you know, how pathetic he feels of his own self and shit, especially with, his mass, like, like, relapsing of alcoholism back and forth and shit. Yeah, his mom's bipolar as fuck. Which, you know, with that means is that, you know, she basically will, like, guilt trip the fuck out of, you know, my friend and shit over his life and over things that he does and shit. And, you know, like, it's, if anything, sometimes, honestly, it's just like, maybe, you know, it is for the best, you know, for, you know, like, family to split and shit, because it's just more of baggage more than it's worth. Because for some people, that could be the, you know, one of the reasons why they are brought down. It's because they got baggage that, because of, you know, whatever reasons, they think, you know, having familiar ties is more important than their own health, I guess. And the fuck is up with you, dude? Seriously? Seriously, Mutt? I mean, it's like, for example, like, if I had, like, hardcore, like, hyper anti-LGBT family members and shit, or, like, hyper evangelical, like, far-right family members that I was more directly, like, around and shit, I mean, I probably wouldn't exactly be, you know, having many positive, you know, opinions about them, nor would I want to interact with them. And I actually do have some family members like that, but luckily they don't know a lot about me, and tend to keep it that way. Because at least they're tolerable when they're, you know, when they don't know any of that shit. Praise socialist Jesus. I don't think I need to be Father Divine or anything like that. And besides, I don't necessarily really think that religion and leftism are compatible. Like, I know there are religious folks that also are leftists and use their leftism or religiosity for vice versa. But, I mean, that doesn't necessarily make it, like, a positive outcome, because there's a lot of fundamentalists and extremists that will take the religiosity, a part of all that, and bend it for their own personal agenda. Even if the initial proponent of that idea is a major leftist type. For the Christian communism. I know. I mean, I know it's a thing. There's, like, fucking, like, communist Catholicism. Like, with people like Dorothy Day. Like, I absolutely know that, you know, these type of people exist and these ideologies exist. But way too often do far-right extremists use these type of people and their ideology to perpetrate their shit. Because religion is fundamentally a far-right idea. Like, I mean, like I said, you get leftists that, you know, obviously, you know, religious folks and shit, but, I mean, that doesn't necessarily change what the religion is. Because if people just have a very lefty interpretation of it, it's because they cherry-pick the ideas. Same thing for the far right, too. You know, they cherry-pick, you know, different things out of the religion that, you know, is, more, prominent to their views and shit, and vice versa. I mean, like, Jim Jones, for example, like, socialist, a leftist, but also a fucking crazy cult leader who was very religious and a Christian himself, who also saw himself as like a second coming of Christ too, and actually had a little beef with Father Divine and shit, because Father Divine, another leftist pastor, was also kind of saw himself as like a returning of Jesus Christ. I feel like religion's more centrist. Too often, religion is used to justify outright death and genocide. I mean, it's like there's just historical precedent to, argue that religion is a right-wing idea. Like the Crusades, the Inquisitions, like outright genocidal holocausts and pillaging and raping, kingdoms and villages, all for the name of God. Like, it's inherent, like, I don't really think, there's much of an argument to say it's centrist. Like, sure, there's probably a few people you can pick a point, but outright religious organized institutions are inherently a right-wing thing, and they use religion as a basis for that. I mean, there's way too many times in accounts of history and just, facts of history that just show that. Left versus right dynamic was really created till the French Revolution, though. Well, yeah, because it's, technically an arbitrary definement of political ideas. At least it wasn't discussed that way. Yeah, it wasn't discussed as a left versus right paradigm, but kind of the same ideas are kind of still there. They just weren't really necessarily defined as a left-right thing. Though since, a lot of modern political analysis is usually in a left-right spectrum, I'm just saying it for more simplicity's sake. Because I could use more specific, ideological details and labels for it, but it'd be more convoluted. Quit burning. Boo. There we go. Really? You're not gonna stop burning? Fine, fuck you. Got you out, that'll be a good bird. I'm trying to find a good alt history show to watch, but all I can find is of Germany won World War II shows. Yeah, that seems to be the very big thing of alt history that people, at least in modern times, go to. Which, I get. It's a very pinnacle time of history where, depending on, the outcomes, history would fundamentally be totally different. At the same time, you can see that for a lot of instances in history. Like, it's like, for me, I'd love to see some alternate history of the Cold War. Because there's a lot of points in the Cold War where it could have gone either way, where it could have been more of a peaceful prosperity and maybe more of a diplomatic approach between the East and West, and there could have obviously been a hot war at different times that could have popped off. The Soviets won the Cold War. Not just with that, but like, there's just like different outcomes, at different times of the Cold War that, outcomes could have fundamentally changed. Whether it's Soviets winning the Cold War economically, or even via a war, or, America winning via a war, or I guess NATO/the West doing so. Or if a war starts, or if, like, certain things, didn't happen, like, let's say the Bay of Pigs didn't happen, and shit like that. Like, there's different things, that could have played a major role in how the Cold War could have turned out. like East and West Germany had at least like 2 or 3 different instances before total reunification in 1990, back in October, before, you know, when they could have possibly reunified as a unitary German state. I know there was one point during the 50s and some point during like the late 60s, and then after that there was, I think, like some talk during the 80s. It didn't, you know, officially happen during the 90s, shortly before the Soviet Union collapsed. Which, honestly, I kind of wish there were some elements of East Germany that kind of stuck around, like their national anthem. Like, the East German national anthem, in my opinion, is better than the current German national anthem. So I'll pass a note offering to reunite Germany, but as long as it was neutral. Yeah. And even the German state, like, at least between the East and the West, German administrations at the time, while Stalin was still alive back in the 50s, they were having talks to potentially do something like that. Like, we'll stay a neutral state, you know, as long, you know, when we reunify, just, you know, as long as, like, these two powers happen to be somewhat antagonistic towards each other. Because at that point, antagonisms between the West and the East were starting to prop up, you know, by the 50s and shit, and Stalin didn't really want that, obviously. He was kind of more about, like, I want to kind of keep things as status quo as possible now that the Nazis are gone. Which kind of included his whole, like, one socialist state, you know, system, which, you know, basically just spread the revolution as far as it needs to type of thing. Hence why you had, like, the Warsaw Pact, because it was basically a meat shield between the revolutionary USSR. And at least in Stalin's mind, it's already successful, so there's no reason to try to expand further in Stalin's mind, outside to keep the West/capitalism from interfering with, you know, their interests. So Stalin was at least somewhat open to kind of fucking off for a bit. As long as the West and NATO did, but they weren't really necessarily adamant about that. Germany almost got back its Polish territories back with that offer as well. Which I don't know if I would have agreed with personally. I mean, I valued, you know, the idea of Poland having its independence and stuff because, I mean, they've quite literally have fought, like, for hundreds of years for it. Like, whether being occupied by the German Empire, the fucking, like, you know, Lithuanian, Russians, you know, like, I think they've kind of earned that. It's incredibly generous to Germany. It's a shame it wasn't taken up. Well, it's because mainly of NATO and the West. Like, there was a lot of different anti-communist influences within NATO and the West that did not like, you know, the Soviet Union whatsoever. You know, it's like they hated Nazis, but they hated communists just as much in their mind, you know, so they're just like, no, fuck them, you know, it's like they're the next enemy now. Poland would have still existed, just smaller. Which I feel like in those type of cases, it probably maybe would have been, you know, a negative, more negative outcome for Poland, maybe. Because if they're a smaller state, you know, they're kind of more of a weaker European nation, and in their mind, you know, they're probably going to be, you know, more nationalistic about, you know, trying to kind of regain what Poland was historically. Because Poland used to be like a major European superpower for a long time with the Polish Commonwealth, and then later the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth when they unified. So, this is kind of another thing where, you know, you can kind of see where, you know, today, where, you know, Poland has, you know, a lot of branches of nationalism within its politics and shit. I mean, I feel like, you know, at least in today's sense, if it was a smaller country, that probably would be more exacerbated, I would feel like. Maybe it would branch off into some other countries because there would be Polish minorities in those nations that would, you know, kind of want to advocate for, you know, becoming Polish states. I've heard from my Europe friends, Poland's slipping into right-wing politics. That's what I mean. Like, I mean, I don't know a lot about, you know, like, European politics about, like, you know, nations specifically, but there are at least, you know, some countries that, you know, I think do actually pertain in international interests. Poland, Hungary, France, and the UK, I think, are kind of the big four that, you know, right now, I think, you know, pertain some interest. Because UK, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on there, really. Like, it's just a clusterfuck of nonsense. I don't know what's happening. I don't think anyone does, frankly. France, a little bit because it's, you know, a major political and European economical, like, powerhouse. Well, Germany, too, so I guess the big five, really. you know, and they also play a major role in how, like, European politics work and how they play out, you know, regionally there. And then Poland and Hungary, because that's where, like, the home base of a lot of far-right fascist extremism is rising. And in Italy, too. So I guess 6. Like, you know, Italy, Hungary, and Poland, because there's a lot of far-right fascist extremism on the rise in these countries, to the point where they're outright, like, embracing, like, Nazistic fascists and shit, like, people like Mussolini. You know, so it's just like, you definitely have, like, these major elements in certain countries that are growing really rapidly, and Poland's no exception. What in the hell are you doing? What are you getting into? Fucking goober. Man, what a little ball of absurdity. Hey, puppy. You silly boy. Look at you. Let's try Iron Harvest. It's an alternate timeline where we're on happens, but with mechs. I've heard of it. So, get over here. Come here. Oh my god, you fucking freak. Come here. You evidently want attention, so why don't you just get over here? You silly goof. You're goof. End up replacing the idea of tanks with diesel punk mechs. My thing is, like, that just does not seem realistic. In fact, it seems ridiculously impractical. Like, I mean, Russia's, like, for example, tried making, like, absurd, ridiculously oversized, like, tanks that, like, tower over things, basically. Which is basically like an oversized diesel punk, like, mech cannon. And it was so horrible that they basically literally left it abandoned on some dude's farm. It's like they were basically testing it out on a field that happened to be next to a dude's farm. It kind of, like, rolled like a foot, got embedded, and just eventually just, like, got subsumed into the dude's property and shit. And it was rediscovered after, you know, the farmers clearing out some of the land a little bit and realized, oh, this is a gigantic, like, weird mech tower thing with wheels and a tank on top of it. Huh, what the fuck is this? It's like, I mean, honestly, especially if you think about trench warfare, like, I mean, it's not solid ground because it's all been, like, loosened up to shit with artillery fire and, you know, digging the dirt up and everything. So it's going to be very loose, muddy ground. So it's like, how in the fuck are those things going to traverse that shit? Like, tanks, you know, at that time barely could traverse that shit. While in the more immediate, you know, battles and stuff, they were kind of seen as a little bit of a failure. I mean, they actually end up, you know, in the long run being very successful with, you know, the tactics and the technology itself. But in the actual, like, battles, they sucked. Like, they did change the tide of the war a lot, but like I said, like, I mean, they had to send like hundreds of them to even get like 10 of them over there, because most of them would just break down on the way over to the enemy lines. Just walk up to the lake strap of C4, walk away, and boom. Or just chuck the C4 strap, you know, and just wait for it, you know, to walk next to it, and then just boom, there you go. See, that's what I mean, like, the idea of, like, mechs and shit are just really impractical, you know, honestly, of how they work. It's like, I like weird, crazy, steampunky shit, but, like, if it's based in our reality, it's like, there gots to at least be some realism to this shit. There's an alternative history timeline where Muhammad becomes a Christian saint instead of inventing Islam. Dude, people got some weird-ass fanfiction. People got some weird-ass fanfic out there, dude. Like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Let's have Muhammad be, you know, a Christian instead. I guess that can make sense, I suppose. I mean, Islam is basically just like the third and fourth text of the Abrahamic beliefs. Where instead of Judaism, Christianity is like, nah, we're the real ones, and then Islam is basically like, nah, Christians, we're the real ones, bitch. And you Jews are exceptionally not the real ones, because we are actually the real ones, motherfucker. It's just like, it's so stupid. I wonder if, like, the whole, you can't depict Muhammad thing would still be a thing if he was a Christian, where it's like, oh, you can't depict me. You can't have, like, art and, like, depictions of me in artwork and stuff. I wonder if that would still be a thing if Muhammad was Christian. I have a weird feeling that he probably would, but I don't know how much he would actually be able to, like, solidify that within Christian dogma, modern days. I have a weird feeling that he would still be depicted, but just kind of, like, cleverly, where it's like, they'll cherry pick and, like, kind of, like, grasp a straw saying, well, he didn't say, like, to picked all of them and stuff, or at different events and things. They just don't want, he just didn't want, people depicting his face and his appearance, but if there was an event, then, you could have his body there, like, if you happen to have a depiction of some dude in some robes with his back turned to the portrait, or something, so you can't see his face. It's like, see, we didn't depict Muhammad. That's just a body and a representation of Muhammad. Christians would be doing that shit, honestly. Because at least in Islam, you can't even get away with that. Because it's, it's its own thing. But I feel like Christianity, they would loosen that shit up real quick. I mean, it's just like, honestly, they're not even really that much different when it comes to the fundamentalist extremists on these religions. Like, the fucking far-right evangelical, like, fascistic right in this country and shit are not really that much different from the fucking Taliban or, like, fucking Wahhabist imams in Saudi Arabia or Qatar or some shit. So, it's just, like, fundamentally, like, all these, like, pieces of shit, are not really that much different outside of, like, what God, they're worshipping and call it, and fucking what cloth they happen to be wearing, to, depict their religiosity or whatever. And whether they have, like, a crescent or a cross. It's like, oh wow, such distinct differences. It's just all a bunch of weird foo-foo sky daddy bullshit to me at the end of the day. So it's like, it's like, for me, it's like, cry me your offended religious tears if, like, well, no, my stuff's actually very different from that. It's like, calm down. No, it ain't. Zukov, the fuck is up, bro? Can I help you? There's a timeline where Portland becomes a neo-feudalist city because electronics stop working magically. That is just retarded. Dude, Portland would never be neo-feudalistic, bro. Like, there's just too much of, like, a left bent here. I mean, especially from back in the day. Like, there was actually legit, like, Socialist Progressive Party influence in Portland and Seattle for a time. So it's just like, I mean, bruh. there honestly, there ain't no way in fucking hell that would happen. Well, maybe these days, but I don't know. So back then, during World War II era, Like, everywhere outside of those areas, oh, absolutely. But, Portland specifically, or Seattle, I kind of doubt that a little. There's a timeline where Germany has won World War II by nuking Portland. Oh my god. Dude, somebody is a fascist who just wanted to have a fanfiction of nuking Antifa leftist Portland. 100%. That's what's going on there. There's like a fascist like this fucking Antifa communist Portland. Oh, I want an alternate history where it's nuked so we don't have to deal with it in our timeline. So it doesn't exist. So Antifa HQ is not a thing. It's like, I guarantee you that's exactly what the fuck, that person who decided to create that timeline wanted. It's because he has, like, a vendetta against Antifa Portland or whatever the fuck. Which a lot of these fucking far-right weirdos do. Like, I mean, they basically would love to have, like, you know, death squads patrol Portland, or just have it wiped off the fucking map. Like, I've seen too many comments from these motherfuckers, you know, to just believe otherwise, you know, so that they don't want anything else but. Because they absolutely do. They come to Portland to, you know, do this type of shit, or at least try to fucking, you know, intimidate people and, you know, have their little death squads. Because at the end of the day, they don't care. They just want their own fucking power and bloodshed.
Okay, yeah, good peps.
Somebody just being in a playful mood, is that what's going on?
Yeah, I noticed that.
What's my forums or right-wing cesspools?
Yeah,
dude, like the Kaiserreich subreddit has a lot of those type of weirdos on there too. Luckily, there's at least, you know, some different, like, you know, socialists or, like, major, like, syndicalist advocates there and shit, or Cindy's, but, so, you know, at least when it comes to, you know, overall, it's basically just, you know, a way for these weird, like, monarchists and, like, far right-wing weirdos to have their LARP. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm having my syndicalist LARP, you know, having the combined syndicates win the Civil War in America, so, I mean, you know, I'm also doing my LARP, but, I mean, at least I'm not making a big deal out of it. You know, it's just like, it's what, you know, for me, it's whatever. Like, I enjoy it and it's fun, you know, and hell, sometimes I'll go on a right-wing, you know, gameplay on that game, you know, because it's a game, I don't care. But some people make it, like, their weird, like, livelihood of playing the game, at least, to basically have, like, an ideological, like, utopia for themselves. And it's just like, bruh. I mean, it's a game, like, I mean, if I want to have, like, you know, like, the fascist Nazi party in Germany basically coup Hitler but still be fascist and, like, unleash, like, German, like, fucking Luftwaffe jets on everybody and win the war, so, you know, or some random Ball nonsense like that, then goddamn it, let me. If I want to make, like, Finland, like, you know, a communist state and then take over the USSR, goddamn it, let me. If I want to be Japan and somehow make it a democratic reformed nation and conquer all of China, then god damn it, let me. The chairman of the CSA. See, no, I don't. Because I don't have a weird LARP fetish about it. It's like, I like having fun with the game, but at the end of the day, it's a game. It's whatever. If I want to aspire for, like, leftist shit, I would actually go in the real world and advocate it, instead of LARPing it. Which, at least for me, that's, you know, like, the main difference. It's like, if you're at least, you know, actually being an advocate of, you know, the ideas that you want and shit, there's no real reason to try to LARP about it. Because at that point, it isn't a LARP. There's a timeline where the Jews save Mussolini from a bullet, and he denounces fascism and becomes a communist. Mussolini? So he becomes a socialist, denounces that, becomes a fascist, gets saved by some Jews, and then denounces fascism and becomes communist? Dude, Mussolini would be the most bipolar fucking, like, weirdo to ever exist. Like, if that ended up being the case. It's like, I'm a socialist, now I'm a communist. Or it's like, I'm a socialist, and now I'm a fascist, and now I'm a communist. After some Jews that saved me. It's just like, okay. Only get murked by Germany and replaced. Damn. Damn, bro. Oof. Yeah, honestly, it's kind of making me want to play Italy and the Kaiserreich Hearts of Iron 4 gameplay and shit. Mainly just because I kind of want to, like, see, like, what, you know, Italy is like, you know, shit. Because Italy is broken apart into different countries. Like, there's, you know, Socialist Republic of Italy, then there's just the regular Republic of Italy. And then there's the Papal States, and then the Nation of Two Sicilies. Or the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, or whatever the fuck. And I know there's actually ways to where you can unify Italy, you know, you know, in different ways, you know, depending on which nation you take. Because I know with Socialist Italy, I think you can potentially unify with at least Republic of Italy in, like, the northern part of Italy. like, I think there's a way to where you can reunify peacefully with them, but the Papal States and the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, you can't, from what I understand. But at least like the Republic of Italy, there's, I think, an option to do that. Mainly because there's also an option to split apart Republic of Italy to basically be Florence and Venice. Which that also can make it really easy for one or two of those nations to potentially get annexed by the other. You would have to go totalist if you play Cindy Italy. I would have to be a totalist. So essentially just like have an authoritarian route. I mean, I feel like I could probably do it, in, a syndicalist or another ideological gameplay. I mean, I've seen the National Focus Tree, and there's at least options, for, like, other syndicalist factions. At least from what it look like. I mean, it's not that expansive. I don't think Italy has much flavor. Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of flavor. It's very, very rudimentary. In fact, I see a lot of people who are fans of Kaiserreich wanting Italy and Germany especially to have reworks on the National Focus Trees, because from my understanding, Germany basically hasn't had an upgrade to the National Focus Tree for like years. Rather play Kaiser Redux. I still need to get that set up. A lot of Vault history books are either what if Germany won World War II or what if the Confederacy won. I know, like, Turtle Love, whatever his name is, like, I know he's not exactly, helpful with that. Because it's like this alt history author, like, something Turtle Love, and the dude basically makes like 1,000 different books about what if Germany won World War II or if the Confederacy won, and all this other shit. It's kind of whack. Actually, let me see if I remember seeing a video about this dude. Oh, Harry Turtle Dove, that's his name. The word that came early, average video about a bad series. Guns of the South is a good one. Was South African Nazis went back in time with AKs and to give the Confederate AKs. Yeah, because, Confederate soldiers with a bunch of fucking, like, 7.62 fucking Kalashnikovs are totally gonna be able to win. I mean... Yeah, let's just give a bunch of dudes AKs and just not elaborate on the logistics about that. I could get, going back in time to give a bunch of people modern guns, but how are they, 1, going to maintain and repair them, 2, get the ammo for them, and 3, like, use them as well and learn how. I mean, I guess learning how to use them wouldn't be that difficult, but the other 2 are pretty important, I would think. Like, if shit fucks up and you're back in time where that shit don't exist yet, how in the fuck are you gonna fix it? And how are you gonna make more bullets? You can't just stuff black powder in there like a fucking musket and shoot it and expect it to work. I guess you could try. You know what, honestly, like, let me look at this. Let me see, could I potentially, like, if I did it like musket style, See, I wouldn't be able to, honestly, because luckily I got this open bolt hold right here, so I can do this. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to, because just honestly, like, I would have to stuff the bullet right there, because that's where the chamber is, and I would have to somehow have black powder not fall out in this whole cavity, in this whole hole here, and also have some black powder in the front of this fucker, in the barrel too. It's just like, there ain't no fucking way, honestly. Like, I mean, see, you know, give a Confederate this, and they're gonna be like, the fuck is this? It's like, eventually, you know, you'll, like, be able to train them and shit with, like, you know, some basic firearms training type of shit, you know, because it ain't that hard to use these things, you know? Like, not at all. You know, it's very easy to use. Like, especially for an AK, they're not that hard to use. I mean, so training people on operating this fucking thing wouldn't be hard. But you still have to go for the logistic issues of maintaining these and getting the ammo for them. Like, how's that gonna work? Like, I mean, yeah, you might get, like, you know, 10,000 rounds, but there's a lot more fucking unit soldiers than 10,000 rounds now, is there? So, you know, it's like, you're gonna have to give these motherfuckers, like, literally the entire supply of 7.62 ammo, you know, for them to actually, like, stand a chance. I mean, you know, because who's to say how much ammo they're gonna need? The book just says the South Africans teach the Confederates how to maintain and make the ammo. So, okay. So, they basically will teach them, you know, like, how to manufacture the ammo and how to maintain and manufacture the parts. Yeah, so that would make sense. Okay, so there's at least, you know, some logistical, you know, like, elaboration. It's like they teach and maintain, like, you don't have to explain how to make and maintain, you know, AK, you know, parts and ammunition. Like, that's just not needed. So, at least it's explained that they teach them. But they'll still have to get the parts for it. Like, the resources. They'll still have to get the raw brass. They would still have to get, you know, the materials for the gunpowder, which will not be black powder. It'll be gunpowder. And, they would also have to get some brass. Like, they would have to, like, there's a lot of logistical things. Like, they would have to, like, you know, change their tactics very quickly and adapt very quickly. Like, the South Africans better, like, I mean, they would have to do more than just give them AKs. They would have to have, like, officers in their ranks, you know, they would have to actually be, like, advisors there. They would actually have to have a long-term, like, what in the fuck is he doing? Like, they would have to have a long-term presence there. And the fuck is up with you? Huh? What the hell? You just want to get out here or something? Okay, here we go. Leave the door open for you. It's not even the dumbest part. The dumbest part is Robert E. Lee abandoned slavery after reading a history textbook from our timeline and used that book to convince the Confederacy to abandon slavery. That's retarded. Was he go back? Well, you know, like, I mean, there's just no, that just don't make sense. I could see him really being, like, militantly against the idea of statues being propped up, you know, like during the Jim Crow era, because he wasn't a fan of ideas, you know, of him being idolized to things like statues. You know, he was, you know, the idea is like, you know, don't revere me in things like statues. It was kind of about that. So, frankly, the idea of, like, skulls being named after him, statues being propped up after Robert E. Lee is actually, weirdly enough, you know, kind of a disgrace to his name and what he wanted. So, a lot of these neo-Confederates are actually disrespecting him by doing that. Sounds like you need to start tearing some statues down there, guys. But, yeah, the idea that he would be against slavery, like, no, he isn't. Like, there's quotes of him openly saying that, like, you know, the white man needs to guide, you know, black people and be subservient to the white man, you know, because they're just, you know, inferior. Like, that's just what he thought. The idea that he'd be against slavery is pretty fucking silly. I think there's literally only one quote that kind of implies that he would be against it, and it's kind of a weak defense, especially when you start learning about like other shit about him. Come on. Stupid fucking writer. Mary Toldoff wrote an alt history book about what if aliens invaded during World War II. I mean, there's like a whole video about this fucking weirdo, dude. Because he's just like, I mean, he's just ridiculous. Like, he just has the most absurd ass, like, weird alt history stories ever. It's just absurd. It's really dumb because the aliens are not that much more advanced than humans. Germany and the Soviets stopped fighting and unite to fight against the aliens. So Molotov, Ribbentrop, Pact 2, Electric Boogaloo. Oh my god. And also, if the aliens are not much more advanced than humans, then how in the fuck did they even get to the planet? How are they intergalactic? How are they an intergalactic species if they're not much more advanced than humans in the timeline? Like, the fuck? That makes no sense. It's like, what, are they aliens from Mars or something? Are they just Martians? Because, like, this makes no sense at all. Like, they would have to be fundamentally more superior to us technology. Because they have spaceships. Which, like, that would imply that they're more technologically advanced, so how in the fuck are they that much more advanced? That still makes no sense. I know you have nothing to do with it, but it's pissing me off a little bit. It's like, the fuck? So if you're gonna do that, at least imply that the aliens are just, like, insanely, ridiculously, like, advanced, because it kind of needs to be a part of the premise. It's like, yeah, aliens invade. Oh, damn, they're, like, hyper fucking advanced and shit. They also don't expect us to have guns. That I can get, because, you know, with space-time. Like, the farther you are from an object in space, the farther back you see it in time. So, that makes sense. So, if aliens saw our planet and saw that humans live here, and it's thought of them as, like, more of, like, the nomadic hunter-gatherer species that we were, and come down here thinking that's what we are, I mean, that can make sense. I can at least get that. I can get that a little bit. Because they're probably thinking we all have, like, axes and swords and bows, and they're thinking, oh, we can easily deal with that. Yeah, they don't expect us to probably have artillery and things like that. But even then, that's still, like, I mean, if they're more of an advanced species to the point they have spaceships, you'd think they'd be able to, like, study and research the planet before they go into the planet. They originally visited Earth. So they visited Earth in the Middle Ages, so they've also were the... Man, Harry Turtledove, you're making more questions than answers, dude. Harry Turtledove, you're implying more questions than answers with this shit. Also, ginger is like heroin to them. So they love ginger. Dude, what the fuck? Makes their females want to breed out of their cycle. Here. Actually, I've found a video on this. You probably might recognize it.
Do you like stories about World War II? Do you like alternate history stories about World War II?
Yay!
Then avoid this book series with your life. It'll kill your passion just as it has killed mine. Harry Turtledove is a pioneer of alternate history. His books throughout the 80s to 90s created a genre that inspired many to go on and create their own stories.
What even is this?
Still the king of alternate history.
Which I honestly think is a very disgraceful title for him. Like, I mean, sure, he's made a shitload of alt history, but that don't make him a king of it at all. Like, I'd make the Kaiserreich, community more of, like, the kings of alternate history, even though they only have, like, one project, basically. And it's just a Kaiserreich, story. And, but honestly, there's just much more, like, actual, like, creative passion and effort in that versus Harry Turtledove.
South winning the Civil War because South Africans traveled back in time and gave the Confederates AK-47s.
Duh. Yep. That's right, we're gonna be sending the goddamn Union fucking Northerners, back to where they came from. It's like, yep, that's exactly, what's going on. Oh my god.
Maybe aliens randomly invaded during World War II. Or perhaps Joseph Stalin was born in the United States and became a dictator anyway.
Wait, I forgot that detail. Why would Joseph Stalin be born in America? Like, did his parents, migrate there for some reason? Is that, what happened? Oh my god.
Joseph Stalin was born in the United States and became a dictator anyway.
T-posing on all of us.
There were some highs.
I'm just gonna imagine that where it's like, yep, I am Joseph, Steelman. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, I am John Steelman, and I am the American Joseph Stalin T-posing on you all. Is imposing my Steelmanism instead of Stalinism.
But generally,
wait. Did I just see Trump on that one?
Some highs, and there were.
And the last Trump shall sound. Oh my god! What the fuck is going on there? Why is Mike Pence the woman? And why is Trump's head so much more bigger than the body? The future history. Oh my god! I think I might want to read that. I think I kind of want to read that because oh my god, is that like an alt history? Oh, sweet Jesus! Is this like a? Was that book an almost prediction? Was that like something that was like almost a prediction? Like honestly, cause that just sounds terrifying.
But generally his books are at least interesting in concept. So I decided to read the War That Came Early series, a 6-part saga about if World War II began a year earlier. And
1 year earlier? Why not 1933 or something, or 1935 or some shit?
I have talked about Turtledove books in the past, so I thought this was going to be simple. I talk about the first half of the series, he talks about the second half. What could go wrong? Alright, so let's get through this bit by bit. Before we can get into the problems, we gotta talk about the grand history, the big stuff, the things that actually happened. The entire concept of the War That Came Early series is that a few premature decisions led to World War II beginning far quicker than anyone, even Germany, was really prepared for. We begin in 1938, as Europe is on the brink. Germany has recently annexed Austria and is in talks to take the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia next. Basic 10th grade history stuff. Meanwhile, the Spanish Civil War is still ongoing. Yet, remarkably, it's one without Francisco Franco. Instead, the Spanish nationalist leader, José Sanjuro, doesn't get into a plane crash, and survives to continue leading the Spanish fascists in the Civil War. All you need to know is, under Sanjuro, Spain is less keen on staying neutral in the coming war, and it...
So that's kind of the difference between Franco and Sanjuro, is that Sanjuro was somebody that was a lot more friendly with Hitler and the fascist regimes at the time and would have been far more adamant about interfering.
On Gibraltar. So, what's the big break then? What's the great divergence? Simply put, it's all up to Hitler.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
In this alternate timeline, a Czech assassinated a nationalist leader around the same time as the diplomatic meetings, and Hitler decides to pounce on this, using it as justification for war against Czechoslovakia. In his meetings with Chamberlain, the appeasement of Germany makes him fully confident that Germany is ready to take on the British and French if need be. Therefore, he moves his invasion plans up, and the whole charade of taking land to reunite Germany falls apart. Germany is now openly aggressive against the Czechs, instead of just, slipping in and accidentally taking over the nation in our own timeline without anyone declaring war. Germany's actions
just don't do that again.
this time spark a declaration of war for both Britain and France. So long story short, instead of World War II beginning with the invasion of Poland, it instead begins with
Czechoslovakia.
And this has some interesting short-term ramifications. For one, Spain. Since the Spanish Civil War is now tied into the Greater War, Republican Spain survives on. The whole Civil War, in a way, just meanders out, and results in a stalemate for the time being. Now, invading Czechoslovakia does change a bit. For one, it gives the Czechs a fighting chance, and two, it allows the Czechs' neighbors to exploit the situation, such as taking some land for themselves. A commonly forgot fact about pre-war Poland is how nationalistic it kinda was. This book explores how the Poles felt more allied to Germany as a bulwark against the communist Soviets. Also, they hoped Germany would allow them to take a chunk of their neighbor. Well, what do you know? The Soviets decide to declare war on Poland. Yet this time Poland runs to Germany for aid. There's a temporary German-Polish front forms to push back against the Soviets that are now invading Poland. And without any sign of being prepared, the war kind of just grinds to a stalemate by winter. By early 1939, France and Germany are going at it.
Shut up!
War on the Western Front has resulted in the French taking a few regions away from Germany.
That's not how this works!
Actually going on the offensive.
Zukov, get over here!
As to collapse as the Germans
God damn it.
do the same.
Sit. 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 Fucking goober, dude. No!
They are going at it.
Lay down.
And the war on the Western
Lay
Front
down.
has resulted in the French taking a few regions away from Germany.
Lay down.
The French are actually going on the offensive. Yet it begins to collapse as the Germans kinda just do the same maneuver that they did in our timeline. Invade the Netherlands, sweep aside Belgium, go after Paris, and it has mixed results. If you want to think of this conflict like anything, it's World War II light. Neither side has really
World War II light.
Their industrial capability like in our timeline. Instead, they rely on outdated World War I tech and strategy, even using biplanes in some instances. While Germany is still using Panzer Is, the point is World War II doesn't begin with a bang. Instead, it's just sort of meandering. This alternate scenario follows a few of the events that we saw in our own history, but Germany doesn't have the immediate advantage that it did. Germany knows this too, and the war struggle causes political instability in the Reich, with a failed coup on Hitler. Despite surviving this plot, Nazi Germany still has a major problem. Because Hitler jumped the gun so soon, that year of military buildup that Germany had in our own timeline just doesn't happen. Instead, Germany finds itself split between two fronts, just like in the Great War. The book ends in the first half of 1939. The Allies were able to push back the Germans, and a new front begins to settle in. Also, the Japanese declared war on the Soviets.
I'm just gonna, just blop that there. It's like, oh yeah, Japan did some stuff too. At least they didn't hit America. At least they're like, yeah, we'll worry about Hawaii later. Soviets, you're next. I'm honestly realizing that I've just been thinking about it, like, some of the vanilla, like, Hearts of Iron 4 National Focus trees paths that you can go down are basically just these. Like, just, like, this whole, like, you know, alternate timeline where it kind of ends up being more of a sigh, left like, World War II light more than just, like, a bang.
Somehow, it's even longer and less actually happens. Yeah, that's right. Book 1 was the more eventful one.
You know, maybe it comes around.
For as long as West and East is almost 500 pages, the main change that occurs is Japan does pretty alright in their war against the Soviets, and the French push Germany back to the border. The Soviets attempt an invasion, and while that failed, it's still only a matter of time. Really, the war seems like it'll be over soon. Yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah, right. Oh boy. The big switch.
Alright, so as you can see, this is a 6-part book series. If Germany is losing the war so early on, then how can there be 6 books? Aren't Britain, France, and the Soviets just about to push in on Germany? Well, aren't you in for a shock? Rudolf Hess, Deputy Führer, and overall...
Of course something about him comes into play.
Still gets in a plane and flies out of Germany and into Britain.
Oh my god.
To convince the Allies to abandon the war and join Germany against the Soviet Union. And
it's like, wait, what are we doing?
Because conveniently, Winston Churchill died in a f***ing drunk driving accident, he isn't there to stop the Allies from allying with the Nazis.
Winston Churchill dies in a drunk driving accident. And fucking basically somehow, because of that, like, isn't there to persuade the rest of the Allied command to just stop fighting the Nazis? Oh my god.
Just decide, you know what? Yeah, communism sucks.
Communism is the very definition of failure.
Even sending their troops into Poland to join the Nazis. And there you go. That's the first half. Books 1 through 3 summed it all up. And you may be thinking, well, Cody, that doesn't sound so bad. And you know, that's fair. It sounds like a fun and wacky plot. As a brief description, not 3 books, 500 pages each. Do you know where most of our focus is spent throughout this series? The actual meat and potatoes, if you will, consists of paragraphs exactly like this.
Hey, sweetheart. One of the workmen called. He rocked his hips forward and back. His buddies laughed. Sarah just kept walking. They don't know we're Jews, she said in a low voice. A good thing, too. They'd be worse if they did. Her mother answered, I keep hearing they're going to make us put yellow stars on our clothes. Thank God it hasn't happened yet, that's all I can say. Like the ghetto in the old days.
What?
Sarah shivered.
What the fuck?
So,
Oh, the king of alternate history right there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yes.
Think about it. For all the times I've talked about
my god.
the book, have I ever actually talked about, you know, the characters? Because after spending all that time, I have some, opinions. But, you know, that's for another time. This was just the lore video. Go watch part 2.
I kind of want... honestly, I kind of want to, because I don't think I've seen a second part of this, because... Oh, there it is. Because this shit is just absurd.
War that came early. This country is at war.
Oh no, what's going on here?
Men who will not fight for liberty can
Yes.
lose it. We too have faced that fact.
Herr Göring, the news came in. Your wife is pregnant and Stalin is the father.
But...
And now, the thrilling conclusion. Well, it's been quite a while since
Stalin's
I've
the
talked
father.
about work of Harry Turtledove, and just like the past couple of times I've done so, this is a part of a collaboration with the Alternate History Hub, who has already made a part 1. So I'd watch that video first so you can understand the basic premise of the story and what happens in
Or lack thereof.
books. Also, just like previous collaborations, a lot of Turtledove books focus on characters, and we won't necessarily be spoiling those plot lines unless we absolutely have to. We're just talking about the general...
Or lack thereof of characters, frankly.
Books present. With all of that out of the way, let's get to the final 3 books of the 6-book series and see how this early World War II finishes. So after the really weird events of Book 3, we are in Book 4 now, and there's a really bizarre situation where, after deaths, diplomacy, and alliance switching, now the UK, France, and Nazi Germany are all teaming up to invade the Soviet Union, who had just made peace with Japan by giving them the area around Vladivostok after a short war there. The situation out west does seem more urgent now, after all, so it makes sense that they would do that. But this is still really weird. Again, this is why you need to see Part 1 first. US President FDR, in his rage upon seeing the UK and France team up with the Germans, cuts off all aid, but is unable to send supplies to the Soviets to continue any labor.
Wait, so Franklin D. Roosevelt actually is allied with the Soviets partially in this? Is that questionably based? Is that a base?
Regardless, this act actually helps him win a 3rd term for the presidency by keeping the United States out of the World War. But then, of course, with Russia out of the way, Japan now attacks the U.S. and European colonial holdings in Southeast
well, yeah, there's Pearl Harbor. I knew Pearl Harbor came to play at some point in this.
Pacific. There is no Pearl Harbor, but the Philippines are, of course, still a target.
Okay, so it's the Philippines instead.
Oh yeah, and the Spanish Civil War is still going on, with the Republican side still holding out. Now, where do we even begin with this situation? Well, as you can imagine, the idea of the UK now allied with Germany doesn't sit well with everyone. Prime Minister Horace Wilson skews more towards authoritarian measures to keep dissent quiet, which naturally makes everyone feel even worse about the situation.
And I also know historically the UK was going for different strikes and different agitation amongst more radical trade unions at the time, so I imagine there was probably a lot more radicalization, amongst trade unionists and leftists at the time as well, because of that fact.
And several MPs end up organizing a coup d'etat with the army against the British government, leading to not only PM Wilson's arrest, but a withdrawal of the UK from invading Russia and the coalition, and the UK continuing its war with the Axis. Now, while there is a mention back and forth between the British and Italians in North Africa, the book weirdly doesn't explain very well how all of those British troops in Russia were just allowed to go home after the UK re-declared war on Germany. Wouldn't they all just immediately be attacked by everyone else?
Or, taken as prisoners?
The book implies that most of them just go over to Russia's side of the front and help them there, but wouldn't that be a complete logistical nightmare? Also,
yeah, just have the British, who you're fighting for weeks on end now, suddenly be like, hey there, chaps, we're on your side now. It's like we're actually on your team there. What? Hey.
Coalition still makes its way to Moscow, but wouldn't the British withdrawal mess that up too? It's very weird. Meanwhile, Japan and the United States clash, with the US making the occasional gain, but then being unable to sustain it because Japan, at the moment, has better air power. The US was also relieved to see the UK change its mind about the whole Axis thing, and began sending in supplies once again. Book 4 finally ends with France also changing its mind and rejoining the war against Germany. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm sorry, but what was the point of having a big switch of the United Kingdom and France siding with Germany, and then just changing their mind after invading deep into Russia a year later?
Why?
Sure, the big switch was an original twist, I'll give it that, but it almost seems just wasted now. And there are more plot holes as it goes on. Why?
And honestly, now at this point, you're just gonna be pissing off your, the people at home, in your country at this rate, if you keep switching around, switching sides, because you're just basically throwing everyone around as pawns.
What do the next 2 books possibly have that can make this story still interesting instead of annoying? Oh yeah, I almost forgot. In Spain, Francisco Franco gets assassinated by a Czechoslovakian volunteer sniper. Okay, but fine, I'll go with it. I really hope the 5th book is better. So the 5th book is actually the most boring book of the entire series, and it also covers the most amount of time in the European War, in which basically nothing happens. Germany focusing on a new Western front yet again means they lose some ground in the Soviet Union, but that's really it in terms of shifting front lines.
Oh my lord.
British and French soldiers that just randomly switched to helping the Soviets out were finally able to go back home to fight on the Western front. Somehow. There are still hijinks in Africa as well, but that's really it. The only intriguing thing is British General Bernard Montgomery gets killed in action while fighting in Egypt. The Spanish Civil War is also at a numbing standstill. The Pacific War, however, is slightly more interesting. Japan is now stretching to their limits as their larger gains in Vladivostok and China have ironically made it harder for them to expand eastward.
And they tried biological warfare over Hawaii.
Thanks to huge supply lines.
Well, they did do that in China, too.
For example, in the book, they literally dropped bubonic plague-infested rats over Honolulu and Hawaii.
Which, like I said, they did that in China.
Actually isn't that out there in theory, since Japan in reality did try to research these type of things with its infamous Unit 731.
3-1, yep.
Either way, while the Japanese are able to take and hold Midway Island, they could not take Hawaii itself. Book 4 ended at the end of 1941, while this book ends in the spring of 1943. And somehow we've ended up basically in the same lineup of our World War II, except everything is much slower moving now.
So this alternate timeline is basically just like, the war starts early and it eventually just kind of it catches up to our timeline, but just different people die and different people are in charge. Like, what the fuck?
Being the final book of the series naturally means
The Last
this war ends, for the most part. But with the war,
the most part,
what? How does it end? Well, there's yet another coup, and this time it's in Germany. Hitler declares war on the United States in early 1944, and this ends up being the final event to convince the German army that Hitler is not able to win this war, and they assassinate him. This kind of makes sense because, at least in our timeline, Germany had the illusion of superiority after beating France, and they were doing much better, so I can understand them forgiving Hitler's decision in our timeline to declare war on the United States. For Book 6, this new German government notably makes peace with the Allies, changes the flag to the Imperial German one, and end an ongoing persecution against the Jewish population. Although I should note that the Holocaust hadn't reached the heights of the one in our timeline. With the peace, Germany remains undivided and armed, and keeps Austria and Czechoslovakia, the very thing that started this war in the first place.
Oh my god. So they get to keep this, so they basically win the war, like, at least technically?
While they're able to keep the Baltic states and parts of northeastern Poland. Italy, which never got invaded, is still under Mussolini, but the book implies that his regime is very unstable. With this piece, there are several examples of irony compared to our timeline. For example, instead of Eastern Europe being a communist bloc, it's actually full of far-right dictatorships instead. The book
that just sounds so much more better.
also states that eventually the Republicans in Spain win the Civil War, so now you have a communist-influenced Spain. The inverse of
at least that's good.
Our timeline. Meanwhile, the Soviets decide to join the United States in their war in the Pacific against Japan. Mainly
Which they pretty much kind of almost did with us in our actual timeline, so that makes sense.
Vladivostok. However, we don't see the conclusion of how this war goes, although it seems very doubtful the Japanese will be able to hold them off for too long. The final parts of the book then pose an interesting point where no nation has atomic weapons, nor a notable program for pursuing them, which worries Albert Einstein about the future. After all, the possibility of a full-scale World War III is still there, and now there's uncertainty on what'll happen with the knowledge of nuclear explosions out in the world, but no firm control by any nation. Thus ends Book 6, and therefore the series. Now, this whole...
So, like, the idea of nuclear tech is just kind of, like, out in the open. Like, no one's really researched it, no one's really done anything about it. It's just kind of a idea that hasn't really fulfilled yet. I guess that's also good, but yeah, like, honestly, things seem a lot more unstable in this timeline in comparison, like, to where, I feel like if a World War III were to break out, that's where nukes would be used, and I don't like that idea. Like, and also just the plot holes and some of the details from the part 1 of this, like, oh my god, like, I don't know if I could read all these. I wouldn't, like, honestly. I'd rather just, like, get a synopsis like this.
Turtle Dove gives me mixed feelings. A lot of it to me was confusing, perplexing, and kind of a letdown. Now, you might read these and legitimately enjoy the fictional characters, and that's great, but characters weren't what I ever got out of Turtle Dove books so much as the course of events. To me, the characters were vessels to explain those events and show their impact. So when the events are either confusingly implausible, like the big switch, or just boring, it makes me feel that it wasn't worth 6 whole books to tell this story. Now, what I do like about it is there are aspects of the butterfly effect in play, Like, yes, one small event could change everything, but this one seemed to involve a change that seemed minor, yet some of the major changes that happened because of it were more random. Like the fact that Francisco Franco, Bernard Montgomery, and Winston Churchill ended up dying in the series was an interesting butterfly example effect that I didn't expect and I kind of liked. It wasn't a butterfly effect causing the apocalypse like a bunch of dominoes, but rather a more plausible random change of events ending up a different way.
I mean, it makes sense. I think Winston Churchill did almost die in a car accident, so basically it's just saying that instead of not dying, he does, like in a car accident, basically. I mean, with Montgomery dying in Battlefield, I mean, that definitely makes sense. I mean, because, well, I mean, he's a general and a frontline general at that. There's definitely a chance that he can get, whacked, while out in the field. And then with Franco, same thing. I mean, he was out there, fighting in the Civil War, so... Yeah, like, at least they're plausible when they are happening.
To be poorly written ways of making a scenario more interesting when the initial changes didn't seem to make it exciting enough. Then the final books just seemed like they were realizing how silly it was and then undid it as best as they could, so they ended up making a more confusing mess. It was the first and so far only Turtle Dove series to legitimately disappoint me, but hopefully you at least might get some enjoyment out of it. And I certainly hope you at least enjoyed the videos Alternate History Hub and I made about clips. I'm Emperor Tiger Star and I'll... Hey, wait a minute. You guys like maps, right? Of course you do. That's why you're here. And I bet you love...
Well, not for right now. I was here for this. I'm not here for just maps. The maps are cool too. I like maps. Maps are indeed fun. But Hair Turtle Dove is kind of a absurd one. He has some, like... And honestly, considering some of the details of that six-parter series, like, that isn't the most insane shit he's written. Like, Confederates having AKs, fucking, like, the aliens invading in World War II. There's definitely some more comical, absurd shit that he's written. Future of America, where Trump Pence is, like, in there, the last Trump is called, or whatever it is. Like, oh my god, dude. It's just like, bruh, what the fuck? Man. Our Turtle Dove is definitely quite a character. But I also do kind of get some entertainment out of it too, myself personally. Let's see what my friend's doing on the Telegram thing, huh? Friends just being seriously fucking, like, super hyper self-defeated themselves. It's just like, Jesus Christ. It's like, what the fuck, bro? It's like, you think that, you won't be doing much self-improvement if you just, like, kind of, like, fuck on yourself all the time. Which is pretty much what he seems like he's just been doing his past weeks. Like, what the hell? Alright, let's kind of see what else kind of going on tube now. If there is some shit here. Bada bing, bada boom. Goober. I must officially cross the Rubicon. The Rubicon? What? I would think that he's not crossing the Rubicon, but kind of like devolving into like something worse, frankly. At least that's just what it seems like. At least just in my mind. But, So, you know.
I want to talk about Kanye West. Part of me still wonders if the old Kanye will ever come back. If he will recognize that what he's doing currently is extremely hurtful.
That's not gonna ever happen. And honestly, I don't think there was ever an old Kanye. I think this just always was him.
And it seems like we're getting our answers more and more. The old Kanye is gone forever. He's doing so much that you can't come back from these kinds of things. For example, he was on his way to Mar-a-Lago, and look at who he was with. That is booger-eating Nazi Nick Fuentes.
Aw, how adorable.
Kanye West is now chumming it up with an open white supremacist, somebody who denies the Holocaust, who called for a dictatorship, and now he's just like, yeah, going to Mar-a-Lago with him, tee-hee. I don't know what to say about this. And then when you look...
I mean, it's just kind of showing and evident that, you know, he's just basically, you know, like an outright fucking, you know, anti-Semitic fucking Nazi. Which, again, I feel like, you know, at this rate, he's just showing his true fucking colors. I mean, because there's, unfortunately, like, you know, predominant amount of, you know, different folks like him that are, like, hyper black nationalist, black Israelite types and shit that are very staunchly anti-Semitic and, frankly, just kind of borderline Nazistic. That essentially have, like, very similar ideas, you know, to, you know, like, white supremacist, you know, Nazi types and shit. But it's just that, you know, they have, like, a, you know, slightly different way of, you know, going about, you know, justifying the ideology. I mean, in a lot of cases, they do tend to partner up and team up together and shit, you know, and this is just, like, another example of that, where you have, like, a fucking Nazistic black Israelite type and shit, fucking Kanye West and shit, fucking going out there and being like, oh, you know, here, let me buddy up with some actual, like, neo-Nazis, because, you know, they believe in the same shit I do. Just, you know, for different reasons.
So, first time at Mar-a-Lago, rain and traffic, can't believe I kept President Trump waiting, and I had on jeans, yikes, as if having on jeans is, like, improper attire for this orange clown. What you guys think his response was when I asked him to be my running mate? What do you think? I mean, maybe he's trolling here, but do you honestly think that Trump is going to be your running mate?
I mean, dude, Trump will never be a running mate, you know, for anybody. So, like, that's never gonna fucking happen. And he had jeans on for the occasion. And it's like, oh, yikes, oh my goodness. It's like, I mean, what a fucking little prissy little bitch.
I mean, he's out of his mind. He is so lost, and there's just no coming back from this. You are hanging out with an open white supremacist. And what's next for you?
It's also wearing like a NASA hoodie.
How do you even go lower than this, aside from actually calling for a genocide? I feel like that this is it. This is the bottom of the barrel, right? Although it is America, so he can't find some way.
I mean, dude, Kanye does not have a concept of bottom of the barrel. Like, he'll keep, you know, scraping it down and breaking through the barrel to, like, dig underground. to dig the ground beneath the barrel. Like, there's no such thing as bottom of the barrel for Kanye. Like, he don't give a fuck. I mean, it's like, yeah, he's like a very hyper, solipsistic, narcissistic, egotistical fucking Nazi shitbag. I mean, and frankly, a lot of them are. So if they think that, you know, buddying up with like-minded folks, you know, to maximize their power and their influence and agenda, then they do that. I mean, you know, they're a lot more willing to work together, you know, to achieve end goals and shit because they share very similar end goals.
Surprised me, but Kanye West is so wrong that even people like Keemstar, who I don't know if he's ever had a good take, is...
I mean, Keemstar is another right-wing dipshit, but oh my god, man, when you're so right-wing that even Keemstar is just like, yo fam, you need to kind of like cool down a little bit, then you've gone too far.
Here. He says Kanye West is gone forever. He's hanging out with Nick Fuentes. No wonder he's been hating on Jewish people lately. God, this is just sad. Yeah. And that's it. I don't want to say this, but Keemstar's making a good point. Did this friendship with Nick Fuentes come after he started saying anti-Semitic things, or...
Yeah. Mainly because he's been anti-Semitic and been this way for a while. He's probably always believed these type of things, secretly.
Saying anti-Semitic things because he was friendly with Nick Fuentes. It's just, he's gone. This is it. And apparently, the sycophants, the incel army for Nick Fuentes, they see that Keemstar is seething, apparently.
Oh my
It's
god,
like, I
look at
got
this guy.
raided by
He's seething, lol.
Wipers on one of these streams before, too. And they were basically, I forgot what they said exactly, but a bunch of them were calling me the F slur, but they were censoring themselves, and it's just so weird to me, because if you honestly think I'm the F slur and you want to call me the F slur, then just say it with your full chest. But, like, how are you going to throw me in a blender and do a genocide against me and my people and queer people if you can't even call us the F slur without censoring yourselves, right?
I mean, if anything, it shows how much more of a sad little bitch they really tend to be. It's like, oh my god, I'm look at this little faggot, but you know what, I'm gonna censor myself and, and call him that with a bunch of, like, stars and other stuff, in between, so it doesn't actually, like, say it in the chat, so I can, not have to, like, face repercussions. That's hard, so, yeah. Getting him, totally not being a little bitch about it. It's just like, man, like, just, like, go out there with your heart out when it comes to that shit. It's like, I mean, if you're gonna, be calling people slurs and shit, just fucking say it. So then people just, know who the fuck you actually are when it comes to that type of shit, and then, I can deal with you accordingly. Because, sure, you have the right to say that type of stuff, but there is also a thing called, the right to have repercussions and consequences from it, and to face that, so...
This whole movement, whatever you want to call Nick Fuentes' baby Nazi army, it's a
baby
fucking joke. And Kanye West is like, I'm gonna enlist his help for my presidential run. I mean, again, I don't know what they're doing together. They're meeting Trump together. Genuinely don't know what the fuck they could be talking about, but I'm sure it's some really sane stuff. But he's also aligning with Milo Yiannopoulos for his 2024 campaign, who, by the way, is pretending to be ex-gay, and he now came out as a flat earther. So he said...
Oh my god. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child, a recent white child. When I came in, they gave my childish ways. There's flat spaces, fake and gay. Which is, unironically, like a fucking childish way of going about his mentality.
I don't know if it's on Truth Social or Telegram, but either way, this was shared by Patriot Takes. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. The earth is flat, and space is fake and gay. Now, it's Milo, so take anything he says with a grain of salt. He could be trolling. But if the implication here is that you grew up, and as you became older and got more wisdom, that's when you realized that the earth was flat.
And that space is apparently fake and gay. So... space is a fake, concept and art, and not a real thing, and it's also very homosexual at the same time. So, yeah, I think I'll take his word for it, 100%.
I don't know how to even...
I mean, he's just like another sad, fucking little pathetic, insecure little Nazi and shit. And he's another one, these motherfuckers that knows exactly what he's doing. Like, essentially, what he's just doing is, being like a hot... trying to be like a hot take machine, basically, so, he gains a lot of controversy, so he gets a lot of money out of it. And being a fucking ex-gay Nazi and advocating and perpetuating that type of dogmatic bullshit is definitely one of the ways that, in his primary way of going about doing that.
Dude, I don't know how to respond to that.
Because he doesn't give a fuck about the outcomes at the end of the day.
So he could say anything, and I don't think that it would surprise me. Same thing with Nick Fuentes, because again, Kanye West has scraped the bottom of the barrel in terms of shitty people. At this point, if Kanye West could resurrect Hitler and have dinner with him, he probably would do that.
No, he absolutely would.
How far gone he is currently. He's just... there's no coming back from this. Now,
I mean, to be fair, I probably would resurrect Hitler just so I could whack him.
aside from him being
Hey, what's up, Mr. Hitler? I brought you back from the grave. Blap!
an anti-Semitic piece of shit, he's also just a shitty person, reportedly. So this is courtesy of Ken Meyer from Mediaite. Adidas staffers claim Kanye played porn in meetings, showed off explicit photos of Kim, and company ignored his toxic behavior.
Well, that's also at the fault for the fucking, company heads for just, like, ignoring it and being culpable to it. But, playing porn in meeting? Why? What?
You're showing naked pictures of...
It's like, yeah, let me look at, like, fucking Bad MILF Bitches 8 or some shit while I'm, like, on my phone, just looking at that, while we're at this, like, corporate board meeting. And let everyone hear it.
To this, do the other employees feel comfortable with you playing porn?
Obviously not.
Meetings?
Well, I guess a little bit, because they ignored it and were complicit with it.
And why would you be... You're having these meetings, presumably to talk about your shitty clothing that you want to hawk through Adidas when you had...
Which looks fucking trash as fuck. Like his, like, fashion lines and stuff look legitimately, like, trashy and fucking gaudy as fuck. It just looks horrible.
Partnership. At what point would porn be necessary? Are you just trying to create, like, an ambiance?
An ambiance?
Do you need porn?
What the fuck?
Professional business setting. Like, that just goes to show you he's nuts. He's out of his mind, okay? A new report explored the testimony of former Yeezy and Adidas staffers who said Kanye West created a highly sexualized and abusive workplace culture throughout his partnership with the company. The rapper, known as Ye, has been under public scrutiny for weeks over his various anti-Semitic comments, and he has seen major financial losses as Adidas and other business collaborators dropped him over the controversy. The scandal has also drawn a great deal of focus on West's business behavior, not only because of his feuds with various companies, but also the reported revelations that he's been pushing conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism for years. Apparently he wanted to name one of his albums Hitler. It's so...
I think it's the album called Ye. He wanted to call it Hitler initially.
bizarre. So in 2018, West...
Which makes me believe that, yeah, he would resurrect Hitler so he could have dinner with him. See, I would resurrect him just so I could whack him again. Make sure that at least someone else can have the claim to, like, yeah, I killed Hitler. It's like, that's the one thing that I really pissed off about Hitler especially, is that, he killed Hitler. It's like, you son of a bitch, somebody else is supposed to do that.
Ago with the young creative who considered it a job interview. The potential staffer described feeling on edge when, upon entering the room, he found West dancing around to his own music on full blast. Talk about sucking yourself off. Jesus
Oh my
Christ.
God, dude. Like, how is he that flexible to suck his own cock? Like, goddamn, dude.
It's like if you came into my house and I'm watching TV and you look up and it's the Humanist Report on TV. That'd be fucking weird and just cringe. But he's sitting here dancing.
I mean, that would be a little weird. I mean, like, I can maybe get, maybe, like, watching some of your old stuff to kind of maybe see, like, transition of how your content or, like, how your work is now in comparison to some of your previous work. It's like, how's my old stuff in, compare and contrast in comparison to my new stuff here, It's like, I can see that, but also... You don't do that all the time. You just, like, kind of do that every now and then. Like, it's kind of like a semi-yearly thing of, like, how's my stuff been like, since years back? I mean, it's like, it's not like some sort of, like, weird-ass, like, oh, let me just fucking just listen to my stuff all the time. Like, that would be a little whack. And kind of cringe.
On music. What a fucking weirdo. The creative member,
It's like my friends show up to my place and then, instead of just, like, listening to Deep Fat Fried on my phone, I'm just listening to myself.
Is West finally turning his attention to the interview and nonchalantly pulling out his phone. My wife just sent me this, West said, according to the creative. On West's phone, the creative claims, was an intimate photo of Kim Kardashian. So you're sitting there, okay, I can't even imagine this. You're going...
No wonder Kim had a divorce.
...to an interview. You are going to meet with Kanye West, right? This fashion designer for a job, and you're probably so excited. And then you see this motherfucker sitting here dancing to his own music on full blast, and then when he sees you, he's not like, hi, I'm Mr. West. He pulls out a phone and shows you a picture of his naked wife. Who does that? Who does that? I'm sorry, people are going to try to defend him and say, oh, well, he has mental health issues. A lot of people have mental...
Honestly, like, I feel like, you know, people that say that type of shit are more, like, quote, ableist, and more offensive to people that actually have neurodivergent and mental disabilities and shit. Because, like, a lot of people do have, like, mental disabilities or neurodivergencies and don't do this type of shit. Like, just because somebody does doesn't mean that they're just gonna be, like, you know, showing things like this to people. Or just being this way. Or acting like this. Like, that's just not, like, a thing. Because I'm definitely, you know, neurodivergent as fuck. And, like, if anything, I tend to be more reclusive in public. You know, so... Like... If anything, you know, for those type of people, they basically, you know, are just painting people who are legitimately, like, you know, who might be bipolar, or, you know, somehow, you know, or some other form of mental disability, and might think, oh, they're prone to probably just do weird shit like this. And it's like, no, they're not. It's just, you know, more naivete and just the lack of actual, like, you know, mental health education, you know, that is just plaguing this country. Because, you know, that, like... being more aware of your own mental health and, like, and shit, it, you know, does go a long way, and actually being educated about that, you know, bears better outcomes. I mean, it's like, unfortunately, we just don't have, you know, these type of, you know, things in place, or, you know, it's accommodated or, like, looked out for.
A lot of people suffer from bipolar disorder. They don't do things like that. I'm sorry. He doesn't get a pass because, oh, well, you know, he does harmful things because of mental health issues. A lot of normal people suffer from mental health issues, and they don't behave this way. It's inexcusable. What, because he's a celebrity and he's rich, we get to give him a pass? No, I don't think so. My wife just sent me this, Wes said.
But unfortunately, a lot of people in society think that way, though.
It was very revealing and personal, the creative tells Rolling Stone. I didn't really react. A source close to the creative recalls being told about the photo of Kardashian hours after the meeting. At least one other time in 2018, West showed an explicit video of Kardashian to members of the creative team at Yeezy, according to a person who says they saw the video. I mean, talk about a complete violation of trust for your partner. It's insane. I mean, some people, they don't know any boundaries. It's so weird.
That's kind of another thing that needs to be taught in school more, is like, hey, there's a thing called social boundaries. Learn what the fuck they are.
Hardly the only story about West showing porn to his business partners. He would be in a meeting and he'd be talking to you and he'd rattle off in his laptop to play a porn video. The employee tells Rolling Stone, and he's like, I know it's uncomfortable, but I kind of need this in the background to keep me focused. And you'd be like, okay. So...
No, you don't. That's his reasoning. He needs it so it helps him focus. Bullshit. Like, no, he doesn't. Like, that just sounds like a bunch of weird cockamamie bullshit to just, like, excuse, you know, the fact that he just wants to, like, fuck off, you know, in a board meeting and creep everybody else out, and hopefully the meeting ends as quick as possible so everyone leaves the room. So he doesn't have to be there.
Have a little bit more clarity. He's not playing porn to create this ambiance. Maybe, you know, he likes porn music. No, he has to have porn on to help him focus on something else.
Which I find to be bullshit. I think it's just an excuse so the meeting ends quicker and people are more uncomfortable, and, you know, he can just, you know, kind of like rub one, you know, from his pants, you know, like out, you know, on a porn video or something. Like, this just seems like bullshit.
In Idiocracy. Mike Judge's comedy, Idiocracy, if you haven't seen it.
I have.
If you watch it, you're going to see a lot of parallels with 2022 America, but you might even think the folks in Idiocracy are actually more intelligent and more reasonable than Americans in 2022
I mean, they definitely are, actually. Like, honestly, in a way, they kind of fucking are.
And I didn't talk about this on my show, but Kanye West had the audacity to say this. So, after he made the despicable comments about George Floyd, he compared himself to George Floyd, saying...
Oh, I remember this comment where he's just like, I now know what it feels like, you know, to have a knee on my neck. And it's just like, no, the fuck you don't. It's like, you actual disgusting fucking piece of shit. It's like, oh my god, dude.
That, and I question the death of George Floyd. It hurt my people. It hurt the black people. So I want to apologize hurting them because right now God has shown me by what Adidas is doing and by what the media is doing, I know how it feels to have a knee on my neck now.
He has the audacity.
It's like, man, what a disgusting piece of fucking shit. It's like, no the fuck you don't. And I would say the audacity of him, but that would imply that he actually has, like, introspection, which he doesn't.
To say this, I don't know what to even think of, about this anymore. One thing that's clear is that Kanye West is not coming back. The old Kanye West. And maybe this,
I mean, like, honestly, I mean, fucking... like, I mean, if anything, like, the motherfucker has just basically always been like this. I don't think, Kanye is not, like, fucking, like, been like this and then suddenly is, after, over time, over the, like, years and shit building up. I think he's just always believed this shit. And now he's just being more open about it because, a lot of his, mental health is, like, deteriorating because of a lot of, various different shit. And, because of the different things that he believes. Because a lot of these type of ideas tend to also degrade a lot of fucking, people's mental health and shit because of how deranged and irrational and out of touch of reality they tend to be and how much, they have to justify in order to believe it.
Unhinged version was just always there waiting to be activated, but either way,
yeah, I kind of agree with that.
The old Kanye West is not going to come back, at least the one where I could enjoy his music. Now whenever his song comes on my playlist, I've got to skip it. I just can't enjoy it anymore. And I grew up essentially on Kanye West's music. I was listening to it a lot when I was a teenager, and he was my favorite artist for a period of time. But now I can't enjoy the art anymore when I know that it's coming from someone who is so just bigoted and so hateful and so idiotic. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He's off his rocker, and he needs to seek help. But instead, he's prepping a 2024 presidential run, and he's recruiting the likes of Milo Yiannopoulos and I guess Nick Fuentes as well. But again, don't really know why he's meeting with Nick Fuentes. All I know
because he's a Nazi.
You're not coming back from that.
I mean, it's just because he's an irredeemable fuck. I mean, it's just kind of what it is. Like, he's just an unhinged, fucking weird, like, hyper-nationalistic, fascistic freako. I mean, it was just like something that, it's like, Mike was saying, they're just kind of waiting to be activated, basically, because he's always believed in it and shit. He just needed, like, just enough validation to activate, a lot of that unhinged batshittery. To just, be like, see, I knew it, basically, because in his mind, that's just what it, that's all it takes for him. It's just like to have, it's like, yeah, I kind of deep down believe this is actually a thing, but I can't really prove it. But then once, there's something that can prove it in his mind, he's like, ah! And this ends up being the fucking result. Saw a little message about my homeboys getting at the pub, so I think I'll get this last bowl of smoke down here. Probably come back a little later in the evening. Get out there, hang out with the homeboys and all that shit. Let's see if the local watering hole still allows puppos there and shit, because I know the last time I heard something about them not allowing that. Which, boo, kinda sucks. Because that sweet little boy just loves all the attention and love that everyone gives him over there. He's like a little attention hole. No matter where he goes. But if not, I'll have to keep him here, and I don't want to have him by his lonesome. But he is kind of taking a nap, so maybe he'll be okay. Get this loaded up here. Oh, I need to make sure I bring my pool stick too, so I have a good proper pool cue to fucking, play some billiards. Play some billiards. Some good old billiards, yes. Oh, what an adorable little sleepy boy. And hopefully it ain't too chilly out there. At least when I went out there to open the door for him, it wasn't really too cold. And I imagine the door's still open, so. It doesn't feel too nippy, so that's at least good. But, anyway, at least all good for right now. And possibly be back later tonight, but who knows. So, anyway, peace out, and I'm Coles.